Hey everyone, it's JC, and today we're going to be modeling a comms device in Plasticity. Let's jump in. Start by going to your front view and create a cube. Hold down on the toolbar here, it's a center box, and start from the center out. We're going to create something that looks a little bit taller than it is wide. And let's check how deep it goes. Let's kind of give it a little bit more depth so we can get some rounding there and not make it too thin after we apply a fillet. All right, in the right view, press G and then hold Control so you can snap it to the center of origin. Next, we're going to select all these ring edges by holding Control and Alt and then giving that a bit of a fillet. Let's check the front view and see how much that is. And something like that. Next, we're just going to select any of these edges in the front and the back and apply another fillet. And let's check that out in the right side. Something like that. Okay, great. Next, we're going to block out a few of these things, and you can think about this as a graphic design exercise where you kind of lay things out before you actually start modeling, but that's just a preference. In this case, we're just going to create a rectangle for that screen and just start from the corner. So go ahead and select the corner rectangle. And just give it some padding. So between this edge and we're going to create a screen, there's a little bit of an edge separation. And just drag it out, maybe somewhere around here. Press G and just make sure you hold Control so you can center it to the face. Now you can see that there's some padding, and maybe we can lift it up a little bit so it's even throughout. Go ahead and select that rectangle. Make sure you're in edge mode by pressing 2, and then press Shift D to move it down the Z axis. So this is going to be where our buttons go. And again, you can kind of imagine this margin kind of continuing down there. So just take a look at that. Press 1. We're going to select those 2 top points, move them down. Something like that. Maybe we should just lift it up and lower this one down a little bit. And I'm noticing there's a big space there, so I'm just going to go ahead and select both of these and scale them down a bit. Maybe this one goes a little further down as well. All right, next thing, we're just going to create that interesting X shape by adding additional points. So go down over to Split Curve Edge at Point, and you're going to hover over the center of this curve and just drop in a point. Press Shift R to repeat that same tool and block it out in all the other sides. We're going to add a total of 3 points, so we have 1 down, and they're just going to be in the halfway marks of these as well. So press Shift R again, and we're going to drop these in the middle. And I'm just pressing Shift R every time I drop a point to repeat that command. And one more here. So now make sure you're in point mode by pressing 1, and we're just going to select these center points from top down and left to right. So it's just the very center of this rectangle across all edges, and then press S twice, and we're going to shrink it down to create that kind of X shape. Maybe to be precise, we can just press 0.5. Press OK. And this area is way too wide, so I'm just going to shrink these points in. Press S once, and then as you're scaling down the Z-axis, you can again drop in a number, so 0.5, press Enter, and that seems pretty good. That's the same thing with the top. Scale it on the X-axis, 0.5, and there you go. So these look a little bit too far in, so I'm going to select those and scale them out a bit. Next, I'm just going to round all these points out. So I'm just going to start with these corners. Select all these corner points. Press B and D and just drag it out a little bit. Maybe 0.19. And let's do the same thing for these center points. Just want to see if everything needs the same rounding, and that might be the case. Yeah, so everything does have a 0.19 rounding across. And let's repeat that for this bottom rectangle here. So press B and D, 0.19. So that's what we're going to use to extract that centerpiece to create a screen, and we're going to inset this one a little bit to put some buttons in. But before that, let's lay out a few more curves that could be used for Booleans, or at least just layout. Let's go to the back and create some cutouts, or at least some shapes that would be used for cutouts. And these are going to be triangular, but the way I want to do them is kind of blocking out a rectangle and then some diagonal lines, and I'll show you that in a second. Press 2 so you're in edge mode, and then hold Control to move it into the center. Okay, now I'm going to press Shift A to turn on the line tool. And I'm just going to click on each end diagonally. And we're going to extract these in a bit. So let's move on to the next area. Maybe there's a bit of an inset here for a plug or something like that. So let's just draw something in the center and drop it to the center here. And maybe we're going to want some little holes here. Maybe they're for screws or some sort of opening. Let's go ahead and draw. Maybe we can just go ahead and use cylinders here. So I'm using the cylinder tool, diagonally kind of figuring out the center here. Make them really small. Push this in a bit. Press B for new body so it doesn't create a new boolean on top of your shape, and right click to accept that. And in body mode, by pressing 4, select this cylinder and let's just push it inwards. We're not going to create that boolean just yet, we're just laying it out. Let's return to our back view. Let's go ahead and mirror this over so we have them on both top and bottom and left and right. So press Alt X, mirror it on this green axis here, right click to accept, and you'll see both are still selected. So go ahead and press Alt X once more, and then on this red axis to mirror it on both sides. Great, so now we have these shapes so we can use as booleans later on. I do want a little bit of an opening down here. So let's go ahead and create one rectangle. That's pretty thin. Move it over around here. Next, press 1 to go to point mode. Select these top 2 points. Press B and D. And if this handle is moving a little bit too abruptly, maybe you should hold the shift so you can have smaller increments in that shift. And just round it out a little bit with that fillet. Press Shift G and we're going to duplicate that towards the x-axis on the right. I'm just going to cut right through this shape later on. Okay, next let's go to the top view. You see it kind of flipped over. It wasn't going to the top view like this. It went all the way over here. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Go ahead and block in a couple of little openings here that might be for some sort of plug or sound emitting device. Press 1 and just round them out a little bit by pressing B and D, and then press 2 to select that curve, press Shift D, and let's just duplicate it down a bit. And with both selected, press G and then just hold down Control so you can snap it to the center so it's vertically centered. And while we're here, we might as well create a couple buttons. So with the center box tool, hover over the center here. Let's just create 2 buttons, maybe a little bit taller than this, so something like that. Let's check it out in the perspective view, way too tall, so let's bring it down. You can leave it a little bit taller since we're going to drop it down in a little bit. Press B, create a new body so it doesn't create a boolean, and right click to accept that. In body mode, by pressing 4, press G, and then let's move it down here. Let's check that on the front view. Maybe it's too close to those 2 little holes. And let's just drop it down a little bit. Right click to accept, and might as well just give this a bit of a rounding real quick here. So Control Alt click these edges and just give it a bit of a fillet by dragging it towards the left. right click to accept. And I'm already doing this because I know I'm going to duplicate it over and I don't want to do this twice. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply a fillet on this edge as well. Right click to accept. And then from the top view, I'm going to duplicate that one over. So select that body, press Shift D, and move it down the X axis. And while we're here, might as well just drop in that kind of twisting knob that we're going to have. And I'm just going to drop it in the center here and move it over. And it's trying to create a Boolean, so I just press B. So it doesn't do that. Right click to accept, and we're just going to block it in, see where that can go. I'm going to scale this down in the Z axis and scale it down altogether. And from this angle, it does look like it needs to be a little bit bigger, so maybe I shrunk it down too much. So select that, press S twice. Let's just see what this looks like. You bring it up a little bit. In edge mode, by pressing 2, select this top edge, and let's fillet that. Or actually, let's give it a bit of a chamfer here. Next, we're going to create a bit of a button or kind of trigger type thing on the left. Go to your left view, and then with the center box tool, just create a box here, maybe around this width, maybe a little taller. Press B so it doesn't turn that into a Boolean, and then right click to accept. Next, press G and move it up the Z axis a bit. I'm going to adjust it just a little bit here. Right click to accept. And then maybe let's bring it in just a bit. And then this thing needs to be a lot smaller. So let's push it all the way in. And right click to accept. All right, so the next, we're just going to round it out a little bit so it doesn't just look like a cube in there. So select these two edges. And in the front view, we're just going to apply a fillet. And let's round it all the way in, even beyond where it intersects. Gives it a nice curvature there. Right click to accept. And I know that this is going to have some sort of groove or series of grooves. So go ahead and create a cylinder. Just hover over the center here. And these are going to be used as Booleans. Press B so it creates a new body. And then G twice so we can move it into place. And I'm holding Control so I can snap onto this edge so it's in the center of this cylinder. So I'm just dropping in one. And I'm going to duplicate the other ones by using an array. So go ahead and select that in body mode. And then down here, click on rectangular array and just hover all the way down around this area. Just give it some breathing room before it kind of turns into a curve. And we're probably just going to use 3 here. So in the numbers section, just press 3 and right click to accept that. And then press G so you can kind of adjust this Z axis, and Control so you can snap it to the center of that face. So now it should be centered. And we're not going to carry out the Boolean just yet, but let's just put it into place. Right now it's not touching that center area, so let's just move it in. It looks pretty good. Now I'm just going to drop in a couple more shapes and then move on to extruding these curves. Maybe there's a little bit of an LED on this top region. Maybe you can just block it out here by using the cylinder tool. And this should be a Boolean, so it's going to cut right in. I don't want to apply it right now, so I'm going to press B and right click to accept that and just move it out here just a little bit. Just to make sure it doesn't look too big. You just want to block things out before you commit. So let's just move this up here maybe and scale it down. Okay, and then maybe down here we want a little bit of a switch going on. So you can go ahead and start imagining additional things if you want. Right now we're just going to drop in a bit of a shape here by using a cylinder. And I do want to center it. You can always center it later, but I'd rather do it now. So I just dropped in a cylinder here in the center, press B for new body, and G to move it down. Way too wide, so I'm just going to shrink that in a bit. Sometimes you have to shrink it twice since that handle can just be really small at a certain point and can't move it any further. Then move it in. And I'm actually just going to duplicate this top edge. So in edge mode, press 2 to go to edge mode, select this edge, and then Shift D. So you see it created a circular curve there. I duplicated that edge. Press Shift D once more, and we're going to move that down. Next, select both curves, press period so you isolate that. Just too many things going on, so I'd like to isolate it. Next, press Shift A to turn on the line tool, and then hover over the center of the first circle, and then drop it down to the second one. Right-click to accept, and then press Shift R so that you reactivate the line tool, and then just hover over the center of the other one. So make sure they're just tangent by snapping them to the center of each circle. And we don't need these inside curves, so press T, and we're going to trim those two. So now you see with this, we have this shape where a button or a switch can slide in. And it's the same size, so it's on or off or on, it'll fit. You can see that by just moving it up and down. Now that I'm thinking about switches and buttons, might as well just drop in the buttons on the left and right, and then a little selector bar in the center. So go ahead and create a cylinder in the center. Just choose how far it goes out. Press B just in case. Doesn't look like it was trying to create a boolean, but just in case I pressed B. Now let's just move it down here. And I'm just going to align this vertically on the Z-axis by holding Control and snapping to this curve of this rounded rectangle. And then I'm just going to see if this works around here. Maybe scale it out a little bit. And since I'm going to duplicate it over to the right, I might as well just apply the fillet right now. And also push it in a little bit. So press 4, select the whole cylinder here, push it back. I don't want it to stick out too much, so maybe we can just take a look at the profile or the right side view, see how far out it goes. So looks pretty good. Might as well just mirror it over. Select that cylinder, press Alt X. Let's mirror it over to the opposite side. Right click to accept. And now all we need to do is that little selector bar in the center. So go ahead and create a cylinder. I'm going to do that from the right side. Just going to exaggerate it. Press B for new body. Right click to accept. In the front view, I'm just going to align it to the center. And then over here, snap it to that face. So now we can just kind of scale it in and see how small it needs to be. Definitely not that big. I am noticing that these might be too far apart, so I might adjust that in a second. All right, next, this needs to be rounded. So let's go ahead and select these two end circles and then start to fillet that outwards. And instead of just doing it manually, just click on this cylinder and it'll round it out perfectly. Right click to accept. And let's check out the scale. These might be too far apart and a little bit too small. So I'm just going to delete this one and scale this one outwards by pressing S twice. And then let's move it in a little bit. And just like we did before, you can mirror it over. Okay, great. And then one last thing, let's create an array here to then have some holes for some sort of speaker. Go ahead and create one cylinder in the center, wherever you like. B so it doesn't turn into a boolean. And then let's just block it out. So I'm going to start from the left. Just want to see how big these holes need to be. It's good to just kind of examine the sizing before you commit to that. And you can also save this in stages or duplicate these so you kind of try out different things and not worry too much about ruining it. All right, that seems about right. And I'm going to see how many cylinders I need to kind of cut this out without it making feel too busy. So I'm just going to go ahead and press rectangular array and just block it out towards the right. Make sure it's straight out on the x-axis. Let's just give this maybe like a circle in between. So this would be too many, but you can see that there's like a circle distance in between, which is what we want. So maybe it's half as many. Could be 11, or let's do 12. Next, we're just gonna do another array downwards. So don't deselect those, just go downwards. And I think we're just gonna need 3 here. So write in 3 in the number. And let's see what 6 looks like just to see the height difference. Maybe it's too much, so like half of that height. I was just using 6 to see if a circle in between would be too much, and it was. So I just kind of shrunk this handle down. Right click to accept. And I do want them to be a little bit offset. And to do that, I'm just going to select these in body mode. So press 4 and then shift select all these center cylinders. Press G. Move it over to the left. Hold Control. And you'll see that they'll be in the middle now. So it's in between both circles, which is what we want. And we're going to delete this extra one. So that looks pretty good, but we're not sure if it's aligned. So let's just select all of them here. And going back to the front view, press G and hold Control and just make sure it snaps to the center here. Maybe it's in between these two things. So just eyeball if it is centered between the bottom of the screen and the top of this rectangle. All right, and we said we were about to move on, but I did forget that this other side, this right side, does have a bit of a slider going on. So let's go ahead and drop in a corner rectangle. Just make it really thin. And let's snap it to the center. And let's move it down to the center as well. Press 1, and we're going to round it out. Press B and D. Hold Shift so it doesn't go too crazy. Right click to accept. You might as well just kind of create a smaller version of this. So press 2 and Shift D to duplicate that. And we're going to press S twice so we can shrink it in. This will be our button in a second. Press 1 so we can just kind of grab these bottom points and then move them up on the Z-axis. This will be our little slider. I'm just going to move it out. Okay, now we're ready to start extruding a lot of these shapes and then moving on to Booleans. And that's where everything will start to kind of come together. So let's go ahead and start top to bottom. Press 3 to make sure you're in face mode. And just to start selecting objects that we've created, or the curves that we've created, and then just giving them some depth. Starting with these two holes here, I just move them down and then press G so we can kind of bring them in a little bit, or maybe let's actually make them deeper. So scale them up on the Z-axis, right click to accept, and press 4 to go ahead and select this whole body, and shift select these two new shapes. Next, press Q and right click to accept that Boolean. And as you go, we're gonna select curves and hide them. So I'm selecting them in edge mode by pressing 2 and then H to hide them. And I do want to just finish off each one as I go, so I'm going to go ahead and apply fillets or chamfers where needed. All right, let's do the same thing for these two, except we won't delete these since we want to keep them, but we want to use them as Booleans. So again, in body mode, by pressing 4, select the whole body, and then shift select these buttons. Next, press Q, but we're going to keep these tools, so press T and right click. So you'll see this will have created a Boolean difference, but we didn't remove the buttons that were creating that Boolean. Next, select these edges at the bottom, which are part of the new Boolean that we just created, and we're going to move it upwards to give that a bit of a fillet. So now they kind of look like they live in there and they can kind of be pressed downwards. Let's do the same thing for this dial over here. Select the main body, shift select this dial, press Q, and then T to keep that tool, and right click to accept. Press 2 so we can select this edge from that new Boolean hole. And let's move it up to create another fillet. And as I have it active, I'm just going to select the one that we have here so that it matches. And that should now be the same radius as that one. Right click to accept. And while we're here, I'm just going to select these edges and give those a slight fillet so it catches a highlight when we render. Next, let's do this LED light. So press 4, select the main body, shift select this cylinder, and press Q, and right click to accept that. And let's, again, fillet this one. I'm going to hold shift because it's going a little bit too crazy. Right click to accept. Right click to accept. Great. Next thing is the screen area. So press 3, let's select that, and let's move the handle inwards. Right click to accept. And I'm going to hide this curve so I can kind of examine what this shape is doing and how far it is. Maybe it should go in further. Okay, so go ahead and select this, the whole body again, shift select the screen shape and press Q, and that looks pretty good. Maybe we could just keep that screen, so undo that, and let's just keep that tool. So shift select it, press Q, and T to keep that tool. So now this will be our screen, but if you're going to render this, it might be too thick for that refraction, so we're just going to thin it out, and right click to accept. Zoom into this edge, we're going to fillet this considerably, so select it and drag it upwards. And right click to accept. So now you have this thing that could be a screen made out of glass, but you can kind of see into it, so I'm just going to scale it out a little bit. Just want to see where it goes in. Maybe move it back a little bit further. Next, I'm just going to hide that screen and press 3 so you can select this interface. I'm going to duplicate this one so that if you take this into rendering, this will be a different piece that you can apply a different material. Press Shift D, and I'm going to move it up on the Y-axis so it doesn't have that Z fighting when it's perfectly aligned with that other face. Bring back our screen in the outliner, just so we have everything. And before we move down to the speakers, we can do this button on the left. So go ahead and select this shape, shift select the cylinders, press Q and right click to accept. And I'm going to round these out while I'm here. So I'm going to select all these edges that these cylinders created and just give them a nice fillet. Maybe not perfectly circular, maybe there's like a flat area there. And I'm going to fillet these on the other sides as well. So select those edges and fillet those out. And this does have to go in, so I might as well just create a rectangle here and use that as an opening. And I'm just clicking on the corners and then it's snapping to the edges of the actual shape. Next, press 1 and select all these points so you can apply a bit of a fillet so it matches that curvature of this. Hold Shift if it's going too crazy. I'm just going to move it out here, press 3, and then just move this inwards. You could project the curve, but then it's going to go on the other side, and I don't want to clean it up later. All right, so with that shape, now you can select the main body and shift select this one. I'm hiding curves as I go. And this also needs a bit of a fillet, so I'm going to drag this to the left and select our top fillet so it all matches. Click on this one. And now it has the same radius. Right click to accept. And let's move on to this slider area. So press 3, select this rectangular shape that we created and extrude it. And in body mode, let's just move it inwards on the x-axis and create a boolean. I'm going to hide that curve and select this edge. And again, we're going to apply another fillet. And we want it to match to the ones we have. So go ahead and just click on any of the ones on the top. Maybe it's too deep, so I'm just going to select this face by pressing 3 and moving it up a little bit. And next, it does need like an area where that thing's going to slide in. So I selected this face, press 3, select this face, and then press O, and we're just going to offset it. And I just kind of hovered my mouse outwards to create this offset shape. And it's already selected, so what I'm just going to do is push it inwards. Right click to accept. And go ahead and select this one. Press 3 and select that face, and then just move it out. Right click to accept, and let's go ahead and hide this shape. Press 4 and then G to move this in. And I'm going to hold Control so it snaps to this edge. Maybe move it a little bit further. And then by pressing 2, I'm just going to select one of these edges and fillet that out. So now you have a little bit of a sliding mechanism here. Okay, now we can do the speaker array. So go ahead and select the main body. And maybe from a side view, shift select all these cylinders. Press Q and right click to accept. So now you have a nice set of speaker holes. And I'm just going to shift select these one by one. I don't know if there's a quicker way, so if you know one, just let me know. Maybe from this side, I'm just going to select all of them like that. And just give that a bit of a fillet. Moving down, we're going to do this button recess. So go ahead and press 3, select this face, and move it inwards. Just a little bit. Go ahead and hide that curve, so press 2 and then H on that curve. And again, we're just going to apply a Boolean across the shape. If you're having trouble selecting stuff in the viewport, just make sure you can go to the outliner and hover over some of these names. You could name them as you go, but right now I'm just going over the basics. Go ahead and select this body, shift select this new shape and Q to remove it. And again, let's fillet this out. Click on this top fillet. And this inner area is a little bit too flat, so go ahead and fillet that one out as well. This creates a nice sort of transition there. We are going to create some booleans here for these buttons. So go ahead and select the main body and shift select all these buttons. Press Q and then T to keep them. And I'm going to select this body and press period to isolate it. So I can just select these edges and fillet them. And again, I'm just going to select the top fillet here, since they're all the same. Press period to exit isolation mode. And I'm toggling X-ray mode by pressing Alt-Z. Sometimes it gets really busy, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Okay, so moving down, let's do this switch over here. Could be some sort of locking switch. Selected this face by pressing 3 and then moving it in. Alt-Z so I can see how far it is. Right click to accept. And again, press 4, select your main body in this new shape, and then press Q and right click to accept. This is not a unified curve, so I'm just selecting all these edges and hiding them. Next, we're going to select any of these edges and fillet that one out. And again, just select an existing fillet to match it. This button can be a little bit of a harder button, so we're just going to give it a slight fillet. Now you can see if you select it in body mode and imagine it going up and down. All right, since we're still in the front view, might as well do these two shapes down there. And for these, I'm just going to go ahead and use a cut. And to do that, just press C, select your main body, and then just drag, select these two, and right click to accept. You'll see it'll select these new pieces that it's cut out. We don't need those, so press X, and then press 2 so you can select these curves, and press H to hide those. And you guessed it, we're going to select this area to create another fillet. And click on an existing one. And I have toggle faces on and off mapped to Shift E on my keyboard. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, let's go to the back and do some of those booleans as well. Starting from the top, we have these little holes, these little pinholes. So shift select each one after you've selected the main body. Press Q and right click to accept. And maybe they're too small to need a fillet at this stage, so I'm just going to leave them as is. Next, I'm going to select each of these triangles individually, or maybe just a couple of these, and then drag them out. Do the same one for this. I'm going to hold Control so it just snaps. And I'm just going to need these two because I can mirror them over once I'm happy, which is right now. So go ahead and hide these curves now. Select that rectangle on H and select these diagonal lines on H. Alt X that one and top down. So now they should all be centered. All right, so now we're just gonna isolate all of them and I'll show you what we have planned here. I want to create an open area between these diagonals. So we're going to have to select each of these faces and extrude those. So I'm going to select each one individually, press O, and now you can see there's like a bit of an opening between each triangle, which is what we want. So left click once and right click to accept. Select each face, press Shift D to duplicate those, right click to accept, and press 4 to go to body mode and select all the initial triangle shapes that we created, or solids, and press X to remove those. Next, you're going to select all the new faces that we have that now has this nice opening between them, and press F to search for thicken. Press enter on that one, and let's just give it a bit of a thickness here. Great, so we're almost there. Next thing is we're going to select all these edges, or the ring of edges, and fillet those. So Control Alt and click on one of those, and hold Shift Control Alt to select additional rings across the other shapes. You could just do it on one like we did earlier and mirror it over, but might as well just do it here now. And let's exit isolation mode so we kind of get an idea of the fillet size that we need. Let's drag them out. And something like that looks pretty good. Let's see what Cordal looks like. Cordal will try to maintain the same size. You can see how these are rounder out here versus the ones on the inside. Let's see. Maybe Cordal looks a little bit sharper and that's what we're looking for. So let's keep it that. Press OK. And it looks like it's going in at a good depth. So go ahead and select this main body. And just select all these new shapes, these triangular shapes. Press Q and right click to accept. Now let's select all these outer edges and see if we can just fillet them. And while we're here, probably you can just take care of this. So go ahead and extrude this face and select the main body, shift select this, and boolean that out. Let's hide this one and fillet this one. This might be some sort of button, so go ahead and press 3 and O to offset that. more of a plug maybe. So select this interface, move it out, select this edge and fillet that. And now that we have pretty much everything blocked out, we can add some additional details. So let's go ahead and do that kind of pattern on this knob region. And to do that, we're just gonna select this in body mode and isolate it by pressing period. And we're gonna create a couple of diagonal lines here that you'll see we can use as shapes in a minute. I'm gonna select this diagonal curve and duplicate it over. Kind of choose the thickness of that rubber grip that we're going to create here. Press Shift I, and we're going to imprint these curves, which is like projecting these curves onto a surface. So I'm going to select the main body and then drag select both of the curves I want imprinted. Right click to accept. And again, I'm just going to hide these curves. So select those and press H. What I want to do is just select these faces here and go ahead and press Shift D to extract that. While we're here, search for delete redundant topology. I just want to keep that face. Okay, so now that we have this flat surface, well, it's not flat. You can see how the projection picked up the curvature, and it's a nice and interesting diagonal curvature. You can press F, search for thicken, and give it a little bit of depth. But I want to do that outside of isolation mode, so I'm going to do that. Make sure I can see how far out it's going to go. Again, press F, and then thicken. Let's move it out a little bit. Right click to accept, and I'm going to give this a bit of a chamfer so it angles inwards. And I'm going to go ahead and round these out. So that's pretty good. Now we can just go ahead and create a radial array around this knob. So in body mode, by pressing 4, select this new piece. And then down here, let's select radial array. And now you can just hover over the center of something to create that array. And we're just going to play around with how many we need. So I'm just going to increase this number by sliding it to the right. And maybe 36 looks pretty good. Press OK. The only issue is that we did have a Boolean cutout, and it looks like it's too small. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix that and select all these pieces. Actually, just select this body and press 1, or press period to isolate. And let's see if we can just offset this internal face. Yeah, let's do that. So remove isolation mode. I just selected the isolation icon on the top. Let's move it out here. And it should retain that fillet. We're just kind of opening this up a little bit further. Right click to accept. And while we're here, let's give this a little bit more of an interesting surface. Press O to offset that. Select this face and move it down. Right click, let's offset it once more. And select the center one. Maybe it's like a little bit of a button in there, but it's not as accessible. And I'm just going to fillet some of these out. Great, so at this stage again, you can apply your own details. I think we just need to do one more thing. Maybe we can just go ahead and cut out this bottom region. So I'm going to create a line that goes across, press C, and then just cut that out. So now that's two separate pieces, and we can go ahead and give these a bit of a fillet. So press 2, and select the bottom and top since they're separate pieces now. And as I'm dropping this in, I'm just going to select this one so they match. And now you should have a bit of like an opening here if you were to put some batteries in, or it just needs access to the insides. Maybe we can just kind of create a little bit of a shape here and call it a day. So I'm just creating a rectangle, pressing 1, selecting these points and filleting them out. Press 3 so we kind of push this inwards. In body mode, select the main body, shift select this, and right click to accept. I'm just going to fillet this. Great. So this is just one method to kind of block things out. You can definitely experiment by modeling as you go, but sometimes it's easier to just kind of see everything as graphic shapes and then move those and then use Booleans.
Thanks for watching. And if you're interested in diving deeper into plasticity, check out my free minicam course linked below. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment and I'll see you next time.